Yeah, baby, we're back.
We are back. We are here with our guest.
Come on.
Yo.
There he is. You heard his voice. I mean, we
Black
mentioned
Arrow
it
in the
before.
building.
Absolutely. Black Arrow threw an incredible party in Atlanta. So thank you for having us. Unless you're driving, put your hands together for the one, the only Aaron Dolores of Black Arrow.
What up, what up, what up?
Aaron, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor
Thank you. That's what we expect
to
from
come
our
on the
guests.
Cooligans.
Yes.
Although Total Soccer Show had me first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
we're not
you
going to
guys
talk
are,
about that.
You guys are, you
I mean,
know,
we use them.
sloppy seconds.
They sort of vet our
Yeah.
guests, and then
that was the USL
Gotcha.
for you. And we saw you was good, so we're like, all right, let's bring him up.
all right, we're gonna
We're going to promote
although
you.
Tyler didn't show up, so
Oh, really?
I think this is, I think
Yeah.
y'all got the real interview.
Were you in Richmond for that?
No, I called in.
Oh, okay.
that don't count. Then that don't
Yeah.
count.
Oh,
Nobody
come on.
go to Richmond.
We got you in this
yeah, we
studio right
we
here.
flew you in here.
That's right.
We got you out here in
Spirit
Madison.
Airlines.
Yeah, yeah. And we asked you to split that cost with us. It's very expensive.
Okay, we need the receipts. We need all the
We got
receipts.
6 layovers. We're going to make it happen.
Yo, you're not bringing a bag, are you? You're not bringing a bag, right?
Not allowed. Don't use that bathroom because we ain't paying that $5.
So, Aaron Dolores, you are the creator of Black Arrow.
For sure.
All right, and for people who do not know, Black Arrow is a more than I feel like it's difficult to just describe it. Is it a media company? Is it a party show? Is
Yeah,
it like
yeah.
So it's a
Party promotion.
Party
media
promotion.
company.
It's like its main focus is to highlight Black culture in soccer.
And also
sure.
grow it, right?
To
Grow the Black
it,
fandom. Of
highlight
soccer.
it, and to bring the history forward from everything that kind of came, before us, which is something that I learned when I first got into soccer and started doing a little bit of research. Like growing up, in Oakland, I didn't play soccer. I mean, I played when I was younger, but after that, I didn't play at all, and I wasn't really into it. I thought it was a Mexican sport.
Yeah.
That was, our kind of perception of it. And then, I started researching it a little bit more and seeing that, Black folks had a long history in soccer that I didn't even know about. So, I would say kind of setting the trend for the future of Black soccer and also making sure that we're bringing those stories forward of, everything that happened before.
Now, it seems to me like you did a great documentary with Copa 90 US about Black soccer, especially in ATL, which I think Atlanta United, the fan base, sort of probably has the strongest significance of having like Black culture be a part of the team, correct? Right. And by the way, I know that there's fan bases that are trying to do more. A lot of NYCFC fans want a little bit more hip hop culture as a part of the sort of the makeup of NYCFC. A little difficult because they're very, English. But I would say that Atlanta United has that, and also the city itself right now, sort of like the most buzzing hip hop scene. Just everything about it seems like Black excellence. You know what I mean? Atlanta. What was it for you to see that? Because everyone assumes you're from Atlanta because of that documentary.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then you threw a party in Atlanta. So it's like you're not getting out of Atlanta when you're like,
Hey, yeah,
right?
For sure. Now I'm from Oakland, California.
Yeah,
And
Oaktown.
we're going to talk about when you was talking about E40 a little bit later.
I ain't drinking that energy.
Yeah, no, Black culture is Atlanta. So, when you go to a restaurant, you go to a bar, it's ingrained in the city. You can't really go, you can't do anything without it. So I think that is naturally spilling over to the team. Obviously, I think it's an exciting time for American soccer, right? Because they're winning, they're integrating the culture, the hip hop artists are showing up. So they're killing it right now. They're number one.
Yeah,
really
what is it? Freeway just did that promo for Philadelphia Union, even though they lost in the U.S. Open Cup final. But that was a cool thing to see. But it's strange because it feels like just a couple weeks ago we were talking about the Philadelphia Union and why there isn't this bigger effort to connect with like Philly rappers.
Well, it started with Lil Uzi Vert wore the Club America
jersey.
shirt, and I was like, and you can't go back in time. I'm like, but here's a Philly artist,
Right?
And he's wearing this shirt. I get it. It's a much brighter shirt. It fits his style, but why isn't there an opportunity? Why can't Philly make a one-off?
Right.
You know what I mean? Do something funky for Lil Uzi Vert. Give him something. You know what I mean? When we were at the Secret Walls Adidas MLS event, Young M.A. performed, and Red Bulls gave her a jersey, Red Life. She's only going to wear that one. She's probably not going to wear the blue one. You know what I'm saying? But
look, it might cause a little bit of issues with her compatriots.
Yeah, her conglomerate might be a little bit upset. So, but they gave her a jersey. Like, these are things that I feel like we kind of need to be seeing more of.
What I wanted to credit you with is that I think that with what you're doing, the soccer community is so small that even just anybody being like trying to big up any particular part of it, people see it almost immediately, and I feel like the influence is already there.
For sure.
Where like I'm not gonna say like that the freeway thing doesn't happen or that 2 Chainz in Atlanta doesn't happen without like your effort or with what you're doing, but it doesn't hurt either. You know what I mean? Like just
it
amplifies it in stuff like in that way.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we just launched it a year ago, so it's been a hell of a ride. And you know, my thing was because I wasn't into soccer before, and prior to starting this brand, when I really started looking at the soccer community in the U.S., you know, my thing was, why don't I just create it? Right? It's not up to the MLS or San Jose Earthquake or Philadelphia Union necessarily to kick off hip hop culture in soccer, right? There's so much opportunity in soccer specifically to create off the field that my thing is like, rather than complain about it, I'm just going to start it and then give the soccer community and the MLS and whoever something to connect into, right? Because they're not going to initiate it. They're running a league. You know, they're doing a lot of other things. And so I think that's kind of the beautiful thing. I mean, I've noticed a lot of...
It'd be dope if it was just like Summer Jam sponsored by Major League Soccer. Yeah, we're getting in this, dog.
Here's Fat Joe in an NYCFC jersey.
Why not? Why not?
What is your goal? What is the goal of Black Arrow? Like, if you could look back in 5 years and you would say, like, these 3 things you could tick off and you were successful, what are those 3 things? Because I think that's a big question people have is like, all right, I see what you're doing, but like, what is actually happening? What is the goal of Black Arrow?
Right. So it kind of happens on a few different levels. And I think anytime you are creating something that is of your culture, there's a lot of different levels to like the way that you think about it, right? There's just what's important to Black people as far as like our community and our culture and stuff like that. There's the culture element, which is the hip hop and, you know, all that stuff. And then, of course, in soccer, everybody wants to know about the development of soccer players and getting more Black kids kind of into it. So we're staying in this lane of this like quote unquote cool kids soccer angle because, you know, when you look at the landscape, that's really what's missing right now.
Yeah.
And so if you want little Black kids to play soccer, it's got to be, they got to want to do it.
Yeah.
It's a culture war more than it is like training them, right? You know, that's why in Brazil or whatever, these guys are, you know, by the time they can even see what's happening, they want to play soccer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of the first thing. And then, you know, the second thing is what tripped me out about soccer was the way that I got into the sport was in 2014, me and my homies, instead of going to Brazil, we went to Europe during the World Cup. And the idea was like, you know, that was going to be just a tourist trap or whatever. So we touched down, we went to 4 different countries. We went to Croatia, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And we kind of put together a trip that we made sure when we were in every country, that country had a game happening. So we could be on the streets with, you know, the fans. So we touched down in Croatia in this town called Pula, which is right on the water, right across the water from Italy.
Italy, yeah.
And they have a Roman Colosseum. It's like one of the most intact Roman Colosseums still, right?
Yeah.
An ancient Roman Colosseum. So we're hanging out, partying, whatever. The night before the match, and Croatia's opening up the World Cup against Brazil in 2014.
Yep.
The mayor decides that they're going to show the game in this Roman Colosseum right on the water, whatever. So, you know, day of game, 10,000 people, you know, roll into this, you know, ancient Colosseum.
In robes, waiting to see gladiators fight.
Thumbs down.
For real. Yeah,
Lions
exactly.
eating gladiators.
Yeah, I'm like, am I part of the show yet? Like, what's going to happen?
You're just like, everyone act cool before.
No, but then that was, you know, and Croatia scored first.
Yeah.
Flares are going off, you know. So that was like my moment where I'm like, holy shit, like as an American, I'm like, I was wrong about soccer all along because the history and the culture and the intensity was just so present like in that moment that I was like, you know. And then we went on to Berlin, we watched the game at, Brandenburg Gate, 100,000 people.
Yeah.
We stopped in Italy. We were in Switzerland. In Switzerland, they were just like, the Colombians were out there. So that was kind of like my entrance into the culture of soccer.
That was your baptism.
That was my baptism, right? And then, I didn't really move on it. And then, just a year and a half ago, kind of conceived this idea of starting Black Arrow. So long story short, for me, it was like I was a little bit shitty that this whole world of soccer existed and I didn't know about it, And
trust me, we were mad at you.
Yeah, furious. We almost didn't have you on the show.
But then also everything that once you start peeling the surfaces of soccer, everything that you learn about the world, from culture to history to Colombia or Venezuela or the Dominican Republic, just like as you follow any lead in soccer, it's going to open up so much more information. So
absolutely.
My main goal, and it's not really to necessarily get kids to play or whatever. My main goal is to kind of set, Black folks or whoever on that path to kind of discover, what I discovered.
Yeah.
Because it's like I want to take them on that ride with me.
What was, one thing I really enjoy is your Instagram, and you do a lot of Instagram stories, and you do this cool thing where you legitimately tell stories in your Instagram story,
and you layer it too.
And it's very, very well done. It feels like these easily digestible documentaries, but it's more about you learning things, right?
Yeah.
And I can't specifically remember one that I enjoyed. Obviously, they disappear after 24 hours. But is there one in particular? Because there was one that you did during the World Cup. It might have been about Panama. I don't remember specifically. But when you do those, is there anyone that particularly stands out where you were like, oh man, I didn't know this about
for sure
soccer or Black culture in soccer,
for sure,
and it really stood out to me.
So I'll tell you two quick stories. So the name Black Arrow. Do you guys know where that came from?
The old player. There was a Black player named Black Arrow in, is it England?
Close. So
Scotland.
So Gil Scott-Heron's father was a professional soccer player.
Yeah.
He came from Jamaica.
Right.
Landed in Detroit and gave birth to Gil Scott-Heron. Gil Scott-Heron, obviously the godfather of hip hop.
Right.
So he ended up getting scouted by the Celtic and
right.
became the first Black player to play for them. This is in like the 1940s or whatever. So you
Way
can
back
imagine, a Black dude playing
the golden age.
In Scotland.
It must have been so easy for him.
So fun
to just.
It's a real breeze. Hey, come on, welcome into the 18.
Yeah. You know how the Scottish are, just welcoming Black people since 1940.
Nah, but it's funny. So the name comes. The fans had nicknamed him the Black Arrow because he was fast, whatever.
Right.
Which I think that's hilarious. But it's an interesting story because when you research the team, then you see that they have a long history of being very liberal and kind of promoting diversity and stuff like that, right? From someone looking from the outside, if you're thinking of a team, whatever in Scotland, you're kind of like but then you think of a team, an organization that was maybe way ahead of its time, in doing something like that. So
was he the first Black player in Scottish Premier League?
He wasn't.
Okay.
He wasn't. But to play for that team,
which was a massive team. I mean, they've Celtic and Rangers always huge, so that's a big deal for sure.
Yeah. So we always kind of I feel like our history is a little bit connected to theirs.
Right.
So we use their colors sometime, and Gil Scott-Heron's granddaughter reached out to me and said, I love what you're doing. My grandfather would be proud. So, those are some of the things that have happened since starting the brand that really are important to me as a Black person, to be able to like connect to the history, like literally, and to influence it. I would say the second thing is our trip to Colombia. Which is maybe you saw on Instagram story. So for folks that don't know, during the World Cup,
you went to visit Christian's family.
Went to visit part of his family.
That kind of you. Thank you for bringing all those great gifts.
But it was we sold travel packages for folks to come to Colombia during the World Cup, and it was an ode to the trip that got me into soccer. during the 2014 World Cup, and kind of the idea was, you bring Black folks into Colombia during the World Cup. We're in Cartagena, where the Afro-Colombian community is based, and it all kind of, you bring them up to speed so much more quicker.
For sure.
They're watching the games everywhere. People are going nuts. You're seeing actual Black people watching soccer. So that was amazing for me to learn about Afro-Colombian culture and history, and just one of the many things that I think that we've done to, I think, connect the diaspora, and also just highlight, just how dope soccer is culturally.
How do you feel about and I that is amazing in itself, especially mentioning like connecting the Black diaspora, right? Because what is it like for you being like an African American male being in these countries where there are also Black people,
right?
But I presume you do not speak Spanish very well.
So the culture is extremely
different.
African American is a specific culture that's very different from a Afro-Cuban or like my grandmother, or like an Afro-Colombian, like Christian.
Because this is a thing, growing up and being Dominican, growing up in New York, there's a little bit of a disconnect to that Black diaspora, right? Where I even know, like, my family, they might be my skin color, maybe even a little bit darker, but they would see like a Black American and be like, "Oh, we're not like them."
Right.
And
the "we're not Black, we're Dominican" is like almost like a trope.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that it is a very like Latinos don't want to consider themselves Black, and people fall in wherever they want to fall. I'm not going to argue with people about that.
Right.
But what is it like, sort of trying to bridge that gap, and how are you received when you're there?
I mean, I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head as far as why this is so important. And I think through soccer, you can grab people's attention to teach those type of things.
Yeah.
But it's not that complicated, right? So the slaves, they came out west, or were brought out west.
Yeah,
been
adventurous.
We're brought out west.
Explorers.
We Google mapped it. And we're like, what's going on over there? Maybe we should find out. Free boat trip? Sure. Ow.
Yeah. No, so, they were, the slave ships landed in Colombia.
Everywhere.
They landed in Panama. They landed in the Caribbean, the DR. So I think that we kind of overcomplicate that. And I hope towards, like, as a society, we are learning more about kind of the history and how we are all, connected for the diaspora, specifically. Like, I ask people all the time, like, is Pele Black? And they'll be like, nah, he's Brazilian. I'm like, he's as Black as this microphone.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, how, I don't want to say brainwashed, but how miseducated are we that we could look at someone that is Black as tar and say he's not Black?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's also because I think the first culture that the first Black culture that became, like, hugely popular was specifically almost like a New York Black culture with, like, the explosion of hip hop, and African American culture, like on TV in the 70s and all that, which is all, America first to media. So the rest of the world got to see what Black culture was like almost through an African American culture of filter. And it's so different. And I think it's something that's becoming so big right now. Speaking specifically of British Black culture, is really its own thing.
Yeah.
Like, even grime artists are like, we're not rappers, we're
Right.
grime artists. And you're like, well, dog, you're just rapping faster. Twista is a
Over
grime
a
artist.
weird beat.
Yeah, slow that beat down a little bit, bro. You know what I mean? Or
You got some place to be? Why are you going so fast?
Why you repeating yourself so much, bro? We heard you the first 18 times. But, like, you look at, like, British Black culture, you look at Jamaican culture, which is sort of like the base of all of this. Jamaicans in New York were the ones who invented hip hop and those types of parties.
Right.
And then you got Jamaican Black culture in Britain. And now recently, what's the dude's name from the the France song?
Veja's Dream.
Thank God you said that. All right. So that guy, like the Black French artist, who's like sort of a Black, it's a hip hop, right?
Yeah, it's about it's like Future. He's like Future.
Okay, so like trap, we got trap out in France, very nice, out of the suburbs, right? So we get that. Like, all these cultures are so different, but one of the things they do is they all highlight sort of what happened when people were forced to go to some of those countries, and they would now live there. Or in some of the cases in Europe, it's more of a migration issue, or more of an immigration issue. But it sort of creates like this beautiful cultures all around. the base of it is the fact that they're all black, but they're all so different. Are you finding that? Is that inspiring to see those things? Does it make it your job easier to see grime being interjected into soccer, or does it make it more difficult to explain everything to, say, someone from Oakland who's like, who? I don't know who Skepta is.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. No, I mean, this is an amazing part of the journey, you know, which is for me to discover the diaspora. And it's not as different as you think, right? It comes in a different form or whatever. But when I see a black dude in Colombia, or I see a black dude in London or in Nigeria, you know, it's we're much more, you know, similar than we are different. So I think the first thing is, you know, we might speak. You know, and until I went to Colombia, I never really wanted to speak Spanish that badly. And then when there was other black folks that I couldn't communicate with, I was like, shit, maybe I should learn Spanish. But you know, like I said, I think we complicated it a lot, and I think it's a very interesting time because through technology, the diaspora is starting to kind of find one another, and you're seeing those influences with the hip hop guys using the dance hall stuff, and then in London they're, you know, pulling from our hip hop stuff, and then, you know, the reggaeton. You know, reggaeton started in Panama, you know, because they were bringing black folks from the Caribbean to help build the Panama Canal, right? And they were bringing that island vibe. And then when they localized the music in Spanish, that's what, you know, spread it to the rest of you know, Spanish-speaking world. So
just real quick for all of our Puerto Rican listeners, don't listen to anything he said. You guys invented it.
Don't tell him that. That came from Panama. That's ours.
That never came from Panama. That came from the Caribbean. My God.
Nah, but
that was invented in the Bronx.
I think it's an interesting time because, you know, through soccer, we can kind of get the eyes and the ears. You know, soccer is the biggest sport for black people when you look at it globally.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Right? Which is something that might be news to us in America. And, you know, I think that's a big part of the brand, which is connecting the diaspora.
So, speaking of Panama, you were recently there for the World Cup. Panama did make their first World Cup ever, and you made a mini documentary about it. And you know, so we'll do what they do on TV shows. We're gonna roll the clip.
We're gonna cut to the clip.
So let's play a clip from the documentary, and then we'll talk about it.
And if you check out our YouTube channel, if you want to see the clip as well.
We're here watching Mexico versus Germany. Mexico's up 1-0. I just want to say, like, I feel so lucky and fortunate to be invited into this house, into this community, to connect in with them at this time. It's just a big time for the country, and as an American, we're here to celebrate with the Panamanians. I think it's really important for soccer fans to realize that some of these players that are playing in the United States are leaving back here a family and a community that really relies on them. When you see these guys playing on the field, remember that they're not just soccer players, they're not just athletes. These guys were born in the barrios, and what they mean to their community, you can't really put words to how important it is.
So you went to Panama.
Yep.
And I saw the film, and it was a. So specifically, you went to Panama and you were wearing a Red Bull jersey, and you were kind of highlighting the Panamanian players from Major League Soccer that did make it and played in the World Cup. What was the experience like? I mean, watching the video, it felt very. It was a really captured how incredibly important it was for Panama to make the World Cup. And for me, there were two things, because it reminded me very much of like Dominican Republic and seeing how like my family grew up.
Right.
And you're seeing, like, you know, we think of soccer players and we think of millionaires and all this other stuff. MLS players probably don't make money like that.
Right.
But you really still see that the players' families are not really living this lavish lifestyle.
Yeah, you weren't in a mansion at all. No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I stayed in a pretty nice hotel.
Yeah.
Nah,
they got some dope stuff out there.
Yeah, we stopped off in Panama, myself and some of my homies, before the Colombia trip started. And you know, when I found out that there was 6 players in the MLS that all play for the Panamanian national team. I hit up the MLS and was like, yo, can you get me these jerseys? I'm going to go down. And kind of was, the idea was to, connect in with the Panamanians and kind of bring, show our respect to them since the U.S. wasn't in it, as a way to learn about how a country, experiences their first ever World Cup.
Yeah.
Right? However long the World Cup's been around, 80, 90 years, this was their first ever World Cup. So we thought it was be cool to be in Panama City to see how people were experiencing that. And you'll see in the video, what I did was I signed up for 2 hood tours.
Nice.
So I found these tours online that literally take you to like the barrios.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Shouts to the gulliest tour guide.
It was the gulliest. It was the gulliest tour.
We everywhere, son.
And
That was sort of I just real quick. I went to Brazil a couple years ago, and we met a cab driver who spoke English, and he took us to favelas. And when that was like that's the only place I wanted to be. I wanted to go and see what it was really like. And everybody was like, "Don't you dare! You'll never
Machine
make
guns in the street.
You'll never make it out alive
for sure."
But he was like, "No, I'll take you." And we took us to like this like warehouse where there was like a huge party, and it was like I got to experience actual Rio de Janeiro, not just all the beaches and stuff.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. So
you see the real culture.
So we. On one of the tours, the tour guy was like, yo, do you want to go to Fidel Escobar's house from the Red Bull? Right. And I was wearing his jersey. And I was like, hell yeah. We kind of walked up, big kind of project building looking thing. His whole family's there. The whole family, the family on the family on the family. This is the day before they're playing in, their first ever World Cup game against Belgium, which was, a body bag, but that's how it goes. His family invited us in to just meet them. I got my hair cut in front of the house. They were out there, chopping hair, and I met his mother. I met his son. I still haven't even met him, but I think the takeaway for me was and some of the stuff that I hope that we can bring with Black Arrow is to kind of show these us fans in America when you're yelling and screaming at these dudes because they missed a kick or something.
Right.
Like, a lot of these guys come from nothing. You know what I mean? And you can't bring your whole family just because you play from the MLS doesn't mean you can just bring your whole family out here, right? And also, like, if you were to imagine if you're from Panama, you're living in the street, you're living in the hood or whatever, like, why would you want to bring your whole family here when you guys are from this neighborhood and all your extended relatives and like that's where you guys grew up.
Yeah.
I hope to kind of get that message across to humanize these guys a little bit so that we're not seeing them just as, soccer players and to understand like what they're going through.
For sure.
His son was sitting right in there.
Yeah.
His mom and whatever. It's not like there's, with them on the road in these hotel rooms. So, I realized really early on when starting Black Arrow, like often I feel like for a lot of the black players that get a lot of heat and, people yelling and screaming at them, like often people don't think about where these guys come from and that they come from rich cultures. And if you can kind of research and understand these cultures, I think you'll, be able to understand these folks better and humanize them a little bit. Obviously, they're humans. What the hell is
it's so there's so many like parallels. Like I think about my family, like my grandparents, they're in their 90s, and my mom is always worrying about them and like has always thought about either bringing them here or moving them to like a nicer place in Dominican Republic, and they're like, no. We're not leaving. We're like, it's by American standards, it's horrible. Everything is bad. There's no hot water. They're stroke, but they're like, no, we're not gonna leave.
It's similar to my grandmother and grandfather when they had to leave Cuba. They went to Newark. They picked Newark. And they were like, this seems like a nice place, and they were wrong. But as everyone got older, my mother and my aunt, my uncle, they were like, well, you guys can move to a different neighborhood. And my grandmother was like, why? I get the bus right there, and I go get the Spanish food I like at the store, and there's other Latinos here. Like, why would I ever move here? And the rest of us were like, should we not pack our bags? Should we unpack?
The thing you mentioned about the players, like, and screaming at them, I don't know if you saw this. the game between Rebels and Atlanta United. Remember we were talking about Gaynor McCann last week, Chris McCann's wife,
yes,
who is very vocal on Twitter, and
she claps back for her man.
She definitely did that, and he had the penalty call because he had the handball. And she was apparently at a bar watching the game when her husband was not having the best game. And she was with, I think she has a son or maybe 1 or 2 kids or something like that. And everybody was like seriously shitting on Chris McCann.
Yeah.
And she put on Twitter, she was like, last time I ever go to a bar to watch a game, because everybody was just, being disrespectful towards, like, I'm clearly his wife. Maybe you can tone it down about that. But she had like a kind of bunch of arguments with people on Twitter, and then she ended up deleting her account.
Oh, man.
So which is a shame.
All right, R.I.P. to the gulliest wag.
Yeah, we were giving you props. Come back to Twitter, man.
Or come on our show.
She's like, the wife and the kid are on before Chris McCann is.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is about humanizing the player. I understand.
It happens to me all the time. I yell at the players all the time, and I very.
I thought you were gonna say I yell at the players' wives.
Yeah. Get out of the way. Get this kid out of the bar. No, but you do it, and you very rarely think about like where they're from, or the fact that they're playing to put food on the table of 18 people in a small house in Panama. You very rarely think of that.
We did an interview that's going to come out in a few weeks. We sat down with Romario Williams, who's plays for Atlanta United, and he's Jamaican.
Yeah,
and he
we
was telling the
story.
Romario,
very Jamaican.
He was telling us when he first came to when he first started playing professionally, he was playing up in Canada. It was cold as hell.
Yeah.
And he's from Jamaica. He's was playing in South Florida before that, and he was like, that was very hard to it's like Cool Runnings. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to adjust, and you might not be thinking about that when you're just watching the game. But this dude is away from his whole family. He's cold as hell.
Right.
It's a different environment.
Sure.
He's like, why are we playing in shorts? Whose idea was this? Get me a parka.
Oh, yeah. Now I think about it, the title of the movie, Cool Runnings, would be better for a Jamaican soccer team playing in Canada than a bobsled team. Doesn't you making Cool Runnings soccer?
I'm sure there's a neighborhood I don't know about in Toronto that's just filled with Jamaicans. Let's get it. Let's figure this out. We got a Cool Runnings too.
So, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Now, the video is coming out while people are hearing this.
Yeah, it's out right now.
So go to which YouTube channel?
Black Arrow FC.
Black Arrow FC. And where can people follow you on Twitter and Instagram and all that?
Everything is Black Arrow FC. Instagram is Black Arrow _FC. Everything else is at Black Arrow FC. You'll find us.
Yeah, and like Alexis mentioned earlier, the party that we went to. I mean, there's content, but there's also dope ass parties. If Black Arrow is throwing a party in your area,
you need to be there. Which we got one coming up, right? We got a little
this
watch
Sunday
party.
We're doing a watch party for Man City Liverpool right here in New York.
Okay.
So an opportunity
where's it at and what time?
It's at Rise, New York.
Which is 3rd and what?
Which is 3rd and 3rd Ave. Murray Hill.
Okay.
So starts at 11. We're gonna have brunch, play some music, watch the game, just kick it,
All right. Yeah. So come out. I'm gonna be there. I don't know. Are you gonna be there? I'll be there.
I'll most likely be there.
Okay.
He's not gonna be there.
Most likely. What is that? 23rd and 30th. There you go. Between 30th and 29th.
Okay. Not far from where we are right now.
Yeah, not at all.
So Aaron Dolores at Black Arrow FC at Black Arrow _FC on Instagram. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
We'll do a little outro. You've seen the show before. So you know how it works.
Yeah.
So my name for Aaron Dolores. My name is Christian Polanco.
My name is Alexis Guerrero.
And together, what are we?
The Cooligans!
What's up? It's the world champion, Judah Friedlander, and you're watching the Cooligans. Why? Because you're cool. This is what winners look like right here, man.
I mean, you're looking at us.
Right now with my legs, I just juggled the ball 80,000 times.
You missed it.
Yeah.
He's been playing keepy uppy since I met him.
Yep, look faster, guys.
Go Team USA.